Just got the ADC to just inputting channel with 2.3
I feel like I'm afraid to say how I feel, to know I let you down. Cause late nights turn to days, don't wanna let you down. With each breath we give away, it'll never be the same. I'm chasing somebody who won't ever ease the pain, but I don't want half of your heart, heart, heart. You can have it back if it's only half of your heart.
Just got the ADC to where just inputting values into here. I've got a 1.3 volts from my power supply here, and I'm connected up to a nuclear board that I'm using to learn to program. It's not exactly the raw ones that's being used in the gas sensor project, but I mean, firmware is firmware, embedded is embedded, I suppose. Probably not the best, but general GPIO outputs and whatnot, so getting the ADC to work was quite a big one for me. I've just got a bunch of HAL code here, and so if I change it to less, so this is at 0.3, so this is like 30, this is 30 millivolts right now. You can see it's hovering around there to about 10 millivolt fluctuation, but it's doing relatively well. So if we increase it back to, that's what, the 2.3, you know, we see it don't actually reaching 2.3, but it's getting there. It is getting there. That's it for this part. So this is a major part for the gas portion, because it was an analog output sensor, so that's why now just to hook up multiple ADCs and such. Right here I'm just simply programming and assigning the pins in the STM32Cube IDE, and to do that, STM Cube is really simple and easy to do. So you can actually look at what all the pins your microcontroller has. So does it have PWM, I2C, does it have that kind of peripheral, what type of ADC. Like, not all pins can use ADC, so which pins can, and it really makes it really easy to assign them. And this, with STM32, it actually generates the code for you on your behalf, so you don't need to mess around with the registers and whatnot, which I think it comes in handy in some cases and it doesn't in other cases, but I think it depends on what your application is. But for bringing up a simple board like this, it has been really helpful, and would highly recommend anyone to try and learn it and take a go at it, as comparison to learning all the bare metal stuff. But of course, that's also good to know. I'll make a separate video on it, on what I've done and other applications that I've used, hopefully in the future. But here, as I said before, we're just applying the different pins and messing around with the ADC. So you saw in the previous clip, I did a simple ADC test with the voltmeter application, that's why I named it, and I had my power supply going to an ADC pin and just trying to read the values, which I've, over the UART terminal, I've exported and I can see clearly. In comparison to Arduino, some of you may know, you may not have a serial port, so Arduino makes it really easy to prototype and whatever, because you have that serial port and it's easy to see values. But I haven't figured out a way over like STM32's Cube IDE things to see the serial port. I've only known that you need to do it over UART to another application called PuTTY. I think I'm going to make another video on that, because that I found tricky to do, but that's a separate thing. So very simple, just assigning pins again, try to get the ADC to work and whatnot, and just defining variables and all that. All I'm doing in this part of the video is trying to get the sensor to work. So with the MQ2 series, it needs like a calibration phase and whatnot to the datasheet, but my brain is not big enough to understand the datasheet fully, so I referred to the internet to do so. And I found an AVR tutorial, which I'll link down below, and this shows you how to set up the different sensor, so the MQ2 one specifically. And so what it does, it takes the graph, if you look at the datasheet of it, and it takes the calibration to make sure it's in clean air and whatnot, and if not, you need to recalibrate again to make sure it's in clean air. So that's what we're doing right here. We're just taking that code, which is an AVR, and if you've used the AVR before, it has its own set of individual programming, so you can actually, with the AVR, if you use Microchip Studio, you can actually, there's actually like a library header which covers all of the registers and whatnot for you. So that's why there's things like ADC, get ADC, and that's your ADC function. So I needed to translate that all into STM32 because there is no ADC get function, it's all in the HAL abstraction layer. So I need to translate all of that over and copy that down and see if it actually works once I get the board did in. So that was for this part of the video, or day I suppose, while I was working on. You can have it back if it's only half of your channel is going to be a software firmware related channel, primarily hardware with some elements, as really it is just a vlog for how I'm progressing onwards with some things I've learned along the way to share with you all, and to make your lives a bit easier when you're learning, and hopefully you learn something new. As to when I started out, I found it quite difficult to really grasp everything, so I hope this comes in handy. But this part of the firmware development, I'm going through the ADCs now, and what I would want it to do is, as mentioned before, is when you press a button, depending on the button press, you would get a reading. So if it's the battery voltage you want read, or the gas itself, then it would produce a result on the LEDs. So what I'm having trouble with right now is understanding how the HAL works for this. So with this being said, it seems like it just reads it anyway. There's no way to specifically target which ADC you want. From what I'm reading in this book, it seems to just go on as it states. Maybe that's just the polling method, I'm not too sure on this, but if this was to use with the registers, I'm sure you could channel which one you would want, but I'm just going to do it for now and see how it turns out till I actually get the board. I feel like I'm afraid to say how I feel, to know I let you down. These late nights turn to days, don't wanna let you down. With each breath we give away, it'll never be the same. I'm chasing somebody who won't ever ease the pain, but I don't want half of your heart. You can have it back if it's only half of your heart. So here was the critical mistake I believe I made. I'm not too sure if this is fixable yet, but I'm gonna have a look at it and see what I can do. So what was going on here is that I've realized that for the RGB LED, I wanted to apply like an orange color to it. So I was looking online to see what's the actual makeup for it. So I've used it with Arduino in the past, and you can do it through their library itself, and it's just a simple 255 then 00, then you get red because it's the digital map that Arduino uses. So 245 is the max brightness, it's a PWM, and 0 would be no, the LED is turned off essentially for that color. So I believe I needed a mixture of red and green, and if I'd only set the GPIO pins, so they're not PWM, they're not timer pins exactly, so I had to look into that to see if is there any workaround around it like this. Can I actually still set it? Because I can still set a different color, but it'll only be the max color of each LED inside that RGB, if that makes sense. So I realized here that I probably should have spent a bit more time looking into this and see if the microcontroller could fit everything, because it could have. Really, it's 3 pin, and I'm sure there was 3 timer PWM pins I could have used, but we're going to look at the workaround around that. But right now I think I've done something wrong. So the solution for this right now is we're going to continue on working with it, and oddly enough, the middle color, so if the battery, so this is for the battery indication, if the battery's less, is half full or half charged or whatever, there's half the remaining charge in it, I'm going to set as blue. If it's less than half, so like a quarter left, red, and if it's more than half, it's going to be green. And so blue would be our middle, or orange, if you would. And this is what I mean by, you should really plan. If you fail to plan to fail, essentially. And this is what I'm getting at for now. Most of the don't I won't even talk about this because it's going to be really messy. And yeah, so I've got the majority of it done. I'm not sure if it's correct. We'll just have to get the board and see. But I've done this general system configurations, whatnot, the general polling of it, what the buttons need to do, the LEDs need to do, and so on and so forth. So it's just literally looking and saying I'm going to probably build the code. It's probably going to get massive amounts of errors and fix my way through there. I would do this on a dev board, but I do not have the exact dev boards for this, so I could have done this on another dev board just to, I think any other dev board would have helped a bit, but I don't know what to do with it for this one. It's a simple one, but we'll just have to wait and see.
With each breath we give away, it'll never be the same. I'm chasing somebody.